Hi there, Jakob. Nice to see that you sent us your last set of essays. Let's take a look at what you did here with this map. So, the two maps show changes made on an island of around 200 to 300 meters length in order to use it for tourism. Overall, on the before uninhabited place, all right, that's a little awkward. It should be overall on the previously uninhabited island. New accommodations and facilities have been created that allow people to have a stay there. That allow people to have a stay for a longer time. Now that makes more sense, okay? First, a pier was built allowing ships to bring people. From that harbor, a network of streets for vehicles and footpaths connects accommodations in a commercial center with a shopping mall, a restaurant, and a hotel beside it. While one group of accommodations standing more dispersed was erected next to the beach on the west side. Another one was built in a circle on the east side of the island. Just next to it, an artificial lake was built. With all these changes, some trees had to disappear. All these changes allowed tourists to sail to this island in order to discover its nature. All right, so here's the good news. It looks like, for the most part, that you've included just about everything. Let me rephrase that. You mentioned just about everything. So, you mentioned footpaths. You mentioned vehicle tracks. You mentioned the lake, the trees, this, and this whole center here, and the pier. There were a couple of things you didn't do. You didn't mention this at all. So it's as if you didn't have this image at all and you went straight into this. Now I realize that there is not a lot for you to talk about here, but you absolutely should mention it. You see, the thing is that in the IELTS exam, if they put something on that paper, there is some reason for it. So you always have to ask yourself, all right, what is it they want to know about this particular information they've put here? So you need to, at the very least, ask yourself, all right, with this before map, what could I say? What could I mention? And then how can I compare it? That's essentially what they want you to do. When they put two maps like this, they're asking you to compare. All right, and you didn't really do that. So it's as if let me do it like this. It's as if you only had this. All right, and you didn't make any mention of what happened before. And so that's a pretty big problem, okay? You did mention here on the before uninhabited new place, but that's really not a lot of information. And so while this isn't the kind of thing that would make an examiner say, oh, okay, he missed key information, and that would really lower your score, you certainly have not covered the before portion of the map enough to get like a higher score for sure, okay? So you should at least spend a little time mentioning it. You did mention its length, and that was good. Did you mention the beach at all? I don't remember anything about okay, you mentioned the beach. So essentially what I think is worthwhile doing is mentioning just briefly, so before any sort of construction occurred on the island was completely uninhabited with no human intervention. It consisted of a beach on its western coast and some trees scattered throughout the northwest, the north central, the northeast, and the south central space of the island. Right, and that's it. And then you can move on, but at least you've said it. So for me, that's what a really developed answer would include, okay? And then you could go on to essentially this paragraph. And then what you would say would basically be like, following construction, numerous changes occurred. And the first thing that I would start with is talking about those trees, okay? Talking about which ones disappeared, because you didn't mention that at all. And that's a pretty big deal, because only this one tree and these trees in the northeast remained. So I would absolutely talk about that. And then I would talk about all the things that were built. So obviously the houses and the footpaths. And so all that stuff that you mentioned was correct. But for me, you missed a big portion of this. Okay? And I'm going to say it one more time just to really kind of hammer it home. They're not going to put something like this. I mean, it's essentially half of the map. They're not going to put something here if they don't want you to talk about it, okay? And you really didn't do that. So I want you to keep that in mind. I hope that that's something you'll keep in mind whether you continue working with us or not. You know, that this is really something you have to pay attention to. Okay, so let's look at your task 2 now. This is the one about green energy. Is it an energy threat, or is it better for the environment and more cost effective? Let's see what you said. With the increasing usage of renewable energies, a debate about their advantages and disadvantages has come up. While arguments in favor of this development are mostly related to lower costs and less environmental damage, those opposed to it refer to the risk of an unsecure energy supply. In my opinion, relying on green energies is associated with technological challenges, but is unavoidable in order to establish sustainable energy production. In this essay, I will discuss both sides using examples of environmental sciences to demonstrate points and support arguments. All right, I liked it. It sounds very good, like you know where you're going with this essay and that you're going to organize it appropriately. It gives me a nice feeling that this is going to be a very cohesive essay. All right, so let's see what you actually said. On the one hand, today, energy production cannot rely completely on renewable energies as they are not yet sufficiently developed. Science, what? I don't know what this means here. I don't know why you wrote the word science. They need wind, sunlight, or other sources of energy to convert into electrical power. They cannot be used for permanent energy production. What's going on in this sentence? Look at this. You've got no punctuation. You've got this comma here, and then you've got this therefore. So I'm so confused. I'm also confused by this word science. So this whole portion here is, look at this. You have a comma here instead of a full stop. So what that means is this. Check it out here, Jakob. Wait, no, here. Look, this is all one sentence. What's going on? Okay. Clearly something happened when you were typing. I'm assuming that that's what the situation is, but absolutely you have to make sure that this kind of thing doesn't happen, because reading this I'm completely confused about where your sentence breaks are, what you're trying to say. There were some poor word choices, like I don't understand why you wrote the word science there. So obviously we've got some problems, okay? Let me see what I can figure out from this though. So here's what you wrote. You wrote, therefore, accumulators are used to store the superfluent energy for its later use, full stop. As a matter of fact, accumulator technology has improved importantly, but still it is not good enough to store energy in a way that allows its flexible use at any time during day or night. This has been calculated for many countries by different environmental and governmental institutions. By consequence, we should not believe that completely abandoning fossil energies today really will work out for us. Okay, so one takeaway that I think we can obtain from this paragraph is that it was fairly incoherent. And the reason is because there were some grammatical and punctuation errors that made certain areas of this incoherent. I mean, you had some words that truly didn't belong there. There was incorrect punctuation. And so I can't really tell you what the central message of this is. So I did understand your first sentence. That was really clear. But there was a lot going on here that made this absolutely difficult to understand, okay? So like I said, the central idea is that, you know, a lot of this technology is not developed and that abandoning fossil fuels completely is not such a great idea yet, but I don't understand any of the in-between part, okay? So let's look at your next body paragraph. On the other hand, prospectively, that's the wrong word again. On the other hand, something green energy is a reasonable solution to problems. You keep using plural, although I don't know why. We usually talk about this in the singular. So green energy is a reasonable solution to problems related to conventional energy production. First, fossil energy, no, we call it fossil fuels. So fossil fuels like power plants burning carbon produce a lot of CO2 emissions associated with climate change and its well-known negative consequences. It has been demonstrated by Greenpeace that a complete switch from using carbon and nuclear materials to wind, sun, and other renewable sources of energy generation would reduce the total amount of CO2 emitted per year worldwide by more than 30%. That's a super long sentence. Fortunately, it was accurate. Look where it started, look where it ended. Check it out. Well, hold on. Here's where it started. Here's where it ended. So I felt like I kept going and going and going. Fortunately, it was a gamble that worked because it was accurate. Okay? Secondly, fossil fuels are expensive not only because of the resources needed, but also because they produce a lot of waste, which costs much money to get rid of. This is especially true for nuclear power. As stated by the French Ministry for Environmental Issues, these costs are more than 500 million euros per year only in France. This shows that there are important advantages for society related to the energy chain. Okay, so you did something somewhat strange here, and this is something that I'm going to ask you to avoid doing in the future. You basically argued in favor of green energy by saying what's wrong with fossil fuel. That's not what you have been asked to do. So let me see if I can explain this with another example so that you can understand what it is that you have done. It's as if the essay is saying, hey, the earth is round. And what you then have done in your essay is you've said, hey, guess what, guys? Look, this is my proof that the world isn't flat. Well, just because you've proved that the earth isn't flat, it doesn't mean that you're proving the world is round. Okay, so do you see how those are two separate things? You're not proving one thing by showing that its opposite is false. Okay, I want you to kind of understand that. I hope it makes sense. It should make sense. But that's what I want you to understand. That if you want to prove that green energy is more cost effective and is less detrimental to the environment, you have to talk about that and not what is wrong with fossil fuel. Okay, that's the point I'm trying to get at here. So make sure that you develop this appropriately. All right, let's look at your conclusion. So to conclude from the examples given, I strongly support the ongoing change from fossil energy. You keep saying fossil energies. I really wanted you to use the word fossil fuels because that's the actual collocation that we're used to in English, to renewable ones because of their benefits mentioned above. In the future, technology will further improve, allowing a further stepwise change toward green energy. There it is, green energy. Good. Okay, so I think you should have at this point a very good idea of what was strong in this essay and what was not really strong. There were some areas of incoherence. There was some incorrect development for me. So although we finished the essays in this particular in the course, I really would like to see more from you. For me to feel confident and say, yes, you're ready to take the exam and you're going to score really, really well, I'd like to see a little more work from you. I think you can get there. I think you can get there relatively quickly, but I would like to see more essays from you. Okay? Is that something you can do? I hope so. There are packages available, so you can sign up for some more work with us. I hope I get to see more essays from you. I really would like to continue working together, okay? So hopefully you will continue with more essays so that we can kind of overcome any weaknesses that exist. All right? Best of luck to you, and I look forward to hearing from you.